events, presentations.
The way society has changed is that we've become much more individualistic, and we don't understand the importance of community anymore, and community has broken down.
Not the same type of assistance that people used to get when they were living in a close-knit community. And this isolation is extended to the isolation of somebody just living by themselves in a little unit somewhere.
Family used to be extended family, now it's nuclear family, and nuclear family has broken down more and more into often one-parent nuclear families. And so the sense of what a community is has shrunk.
People don't do the same sort of things as people used to do out in country towns back in the old days, where everybody knew, you know, what everyone else was doing and were prepared to jump in and help when somebody was under stress. This is now people just don't want to get involved. They're too busy.
In the old days, in the bush, people were, I think people helped each other a lot better than they possibly do now. I mean, there is still that camaraderie among people, but they're so far apart that it is very difficult for them all to get together and help each other. They still have their social outings, of course, but I think it's a lot less prevalent than it used to be.
And for many people, it's difficult to be part of a very small community unless you fit in very neatly and very nicely. Once upon a time, you would fit in to a very large family community, no matter what. If you were part of the extended family, then you would fit in. But because communities have become much smaller, and because people are pursuing individual goals rather than pursuing community goals, then a lot of people miss out, a lot of people drop out or are dropped out of communities. And so we become very socially isolated.
It's almost like lepers back in the old days, or in the days when HIV, AIDS came onto the market. People didn't want to know about it because they just felt that, you know, just being in the same room with them meant that you were going to catch it and you were gone and something was going to happen to you.
The community as a big community doesn't exist very much anymore in real terms.
Certainly, many people with a mental illness may not be aware of what services are actually available to help them. The official figures show 62% or even higher of people with mental illness get no treatment at all. And even of the ones who are in treatment, the majority of those are only seeing a GP.
With the release of people from mental institutions some 20 years ago and the closure of beds on top of this, we've found that people have had to exist in the most basic of accommodation in the community.
Now, I have spoken to doctors in some of the rural towns, and I asked him specifically about mental illness and how it affected his particular town. And he said that he has nowhere he can help people as far as accommodation in that town is concerned, so they've got to drive another 2 hours to take them to another town where they can get good accommodation and be looked after properly.
And I think it's gradually changing, but you've got to remember historically, you know, asylums consisted of people naked, sort of in chains, walking around a pole. So we have come a long way, but yeah, we also really need to have that compassionate, human, communicative element within the psych wards.
The mental health system is under-resourced proportionate to the problem. And that's only been really publicly known for a short time.
20 years ago, the government decided to close all the institutions and to sell them and give the money to the community to look after the people because they thought they'd be better looked after in the community. Unfortunately, they didn't pass the money over, and thereby hangs the problem because St Vincent de Paul pick up the tab for a lot of the situations. You know, we pay their medical bills, we pay their doctors' fees and things like that. So I mean, that's not been picked up by the government where it should be.
When I started psychiatry, I had the feeling that we could help about 20 or 30% of people. I now feel we're up around about the 80%. And that comprises those people where we can bring the condition under complete control, those where we can bring it within a band that the person will say that's good enough, and others where we can help significantly, where there's a difference.
Up until recently, because mental illness was swept under the carpet, it was swept under the carpet of politicians also. And only a very small vociferous minority spoke out about the need for better mental care.
I think what happened just recently with the Premier Jeff Gallop speaking publicly about his battle with depression, I think that's changed the corner already for people with a mental illness.
10 years ago, we wouldn't have had any mental health problems at all to visit. Well, if we did, we didn't recognise them. Now we're seeing it much more. We're seeing a lot more of it. And we have to be aware of what it is. We have to find out, you know, we'll be able to recognise at least the basics of a mental health challenge, and we have to know what to do about it.
I think this is where Vincentians have an important role. But there may not just be enough of them to fulfil this task.
Sometimes these things pop up and even if it's just gradual business. Focus typically.